This even equates to our faith. As a pastor, I see it quite often, is we aspire to be what we've seen done. We aspire to be our pastor. We aspire to be our, I don't know, someone in your family who is a very faithful Christian, or a friend, or a husband, or a wife, or we aspire to be something that's a little bit better than us. So this comparison factor comes in, and even in that place, we can be very stuck. Just this week, I had someone that I have a relationship with, somebody who was somebody that was a. If I was going to compare in faith, someone I saw on a higher standard, a higher level for years. But I got a piece of information this week that I'd never had about this person before. And suddenly it brought to life a lot of things that I'd never known. And in that moment, it began to decrease the value on what I thought this person had or didn't have. Like that can happen really quickly, right? So then the comparison factor, oh, what am I comparing it to? As am I really struggle, like then the faith struggle comes in, right? Someone we've put on a pedestal suddenly is not as high. So then it begins to affect our whole structure. This happens all the time. I'm not just talking faith. Every one of us have had, maybe it's a celebrity, maybe it's an artist, maybe it's someone in our family, whatever it is that we've held to high standards. And then the moment they fall, it really shakes our whole foundational structure on what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. And it can really affect us deep, especially when our foundation is really centered on who that person was. If they were our foundation, the things we built on, if they were that rock in our family that we said they undid a lot, they were the foundation. If they had it straight, then we can build onto that. And now that's crumbled. So then we begin to inspect our whole building as ourselves, our relationships, all these things, they all come into question. So as I begin to think about that perspective, I wanted to shift a little bit today on taking foundation from a building perspective, which I talk about a lot. Is you got to have a strong foundation. You got to have. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about posture, and when you got a good base. I watched The Karate Kid last night. My 17-year-old son, who just turned 17 today, is starting to dive into some of these older 80s movies, which is amazing to me because I'm those are my jams. The Karate Kid. We watched The Goonies here a while back. He's even diving into some of the 90s. He wanted to watch Rush Hour. So I don't know where he hears about these movies or sees a clip or whatever it may be, but he wants to watch these. But last night, we watched The Karate Kid. And if you can remember the moments where Mr. Miyagi sends Daniel out to kick in the middle of the waves, and he talks a lot about balance and having your balance when you're kicking. And then we see Mr. Miyagi standing up on the pylons in the sand, the beams, and doing the crane kick. And Daniel eventually gets to that place. But it's all about having that posture of strength, that base foundation to really stand where somebody just can't knock you over by walking up and touch you. And I think from that now, I want to transition to something even deeper because getting to a place where now our foundation still isn't surface, isn't connected, it actually goes deeper than that. Because my challenge to you today is first, what are you rooted in? That's your true foundation because we are a living being. A foundation, from a building perspective, is an inanimate object. You have a strong base to build another inanimate object on top. It connects the earth that you're building on, that concrete foundation. You dig down, you put it in the dirt, and it connects earth, the thing you're building on, to the thing you're building on top of it. This connection piece to really root or to hold it steady. But if anybody that may be listening to this is on a fault line, even those sturdy foundations, the earthquake can damage those things. But now when you think of a living object, because we are all living objects, so inanimate, while it's the concept is right, we got to have a foundation to build upon. The transition now for us as living objects is to see that a root structure, or our roots, are our actual foundations. I don't know if you've done any research on this, but roots for a tree If you are a homeowner, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you may have planted a little tree because you knew it was going to be pretty one day, a little closer to your house. Or maybe you didn't build the house. And this is where a lot of people find out later on. They buy a house, and somebody along the way decided to plant a little tree in their family, not understanding how big this tree would come. So you got branches all over your house, right? Well, one of the things you have to understand about branches and a tree is for the root structure. In most tree situations, the canopy or the extension of the branches on that tree, if you could go underneath the ground, the root structure is typically, for most trees, as wide as the canopy. So the tree, if you could flip it and look underground, the canopy and the roots are like the same extension. And that's because it's a foundation. In order to support the canopy, one side or the other, the roots are a mirror almost image, not necessarily, they're not as flowery and all of that, but they are rooted out. And this is where when you buy a house and later on in life, you got roots, you get the branches hitting your house. You also have to understand that those roots underneath there are going to affect your foundation at some point, especially for larger trees. That's also where we see sidewalks that become disheveled and cracked and pieces broke off. The first houses we ever bought, we had a pine tree in the front yard that was beautiful. Yet whoever planted that did not realize that at one day that thing was going to be 40 feet high. And then the branches, although not 40 feet high, were going to be substantial, and the roots were just going to destroy the driveway. I spent a lot of time trying to fix and repair the driveway before we eventually sold that house. And it was because of the roots. And the only thing to do then is to tear down the tree. So the root structure is one thing we have to realize is the power of those roots is not only for sturdiness and foundation, but it's also for a living object to obtain water, to obtain nourishment. And it has to be in fertile soil because there are nutrients that are in that soil and that dirt. But then also the water that it gets, although it falls on the leaves of the tree, is not where it goes into the tree. It goes through the ground, and then the roots take in that water. This is also another problem you'll see in areas where you have pine trees. Pine trees are thirsty. And because they take so much water, they will steal moisture from other trees, from grass. And that's why you'll see a lot of areas around pine trees that are not as green. And it's because they're taking all those nutrients, all that water. Man, we could go a lot of certain ways with this, right? Look at your life. If you're malnourished and you're around other trees, other living people, sometimes it's because they're needy and they're stealing all your moisture, all your nutrients, because it's all about them. Hmm. Have I ever thought about that? Think about your friend circles. If you walk around malnourished, unseen, but you still stay in these groups of people, it's generally because they're not speaking life into you, because they're needy, they're broken, they need all the attention. They need all the nourishment. Don't ever step in the way of that, right? Don't ever act like you need more attention. Don't ever feel hurt. Have you ever been around people like this? And even in moments where you are struggling, you're hurt, and you need attention, they will shift it and make it about them. I know you're talking, I know you know right now the person I'm talking about. Every one of you had that person in your life, and it's frustrating, right? Oh my gosh, I can't believe so and so died. Oh, I'm so distraught. You're not even family. You're down the line, but oh, but I need the attention. So I can take a situation like that and I can make it affect me. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about because there's a lot of people like that in this world. A lot, right? Look at the society and culture around us. It is prevalent in the world around us. We've taught anxiety. I have a feeling that most people who walk around anxious and depressed really aren't. They just take the world situations, take what's going on around them, and they make it about them so they can get attention. We are in a world of influencers where everybody has to have the camera on them, where everybody needs to be seen. You need the followers. And now we've demonstrated it's not overcoming situations. It's not getting scars that get you attention. It's not saying, look at what I've overcome. It is, look at what I'm going through.